I think when you're in that type of situation, again, feeling and function is the most important thing because you can achieve that with any budget and still make it beautiful. Even if it wasn't all cohesive, but everything had a place to live, right? What's being popular right now is that people are more so asking for a casual, lived-in feel for the design style. Most of the time, like 9 out of 10 times, my design presentation always goes something along like, oh my gosh, I never thought about, like, I would have never thought of that. I would never have envisioned it that way, but I love it. I think that's the number one mistake is paying so much money to invest in your property, but then at the end of the day, if there was maybe no designer on the project, it might not look as good as it could. They could have spent the exact same money, but the results could have been 10 times better.
All right, Tira, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you, An. Thank you for having me.
Of course, for the listeners hearing about designer space for the first time, like how do you describe what you do and who you do it for?
Yeah, so with my process, I am very in tune with how the client wants to feel in a space first and foremost, and then function along with that too. So I will ask a series of questions as far as how they would like to use the space, because the space that they have now is usually very non-functional. Like a lot of the times they're like, oh, I want to be able to cook more and entertain more, but my kitchen is a dungeon. So they're not able to do that. And so it's very important that we always talk about kind of the lifestyle that they want to bring into their life. That's why they're investing into their home and changing and just spending a lot of money most of the time. So that's what we start out with. And then we go into the aesthetics. Of course. For me, I don't impose my design style and taste onto my clients. I work with all different types of styles, and I will then take what the client envisions and enhance it even more. So I'm not living in this home. It is just something that I think about all the time. So I'm designing for my clients most of the time. And that's usually the feedback I get as well when they visit my website. They'll see that there's a lot of different styles and clearly that I have repurposed and used some of their existing stuff as well.
Gotcha. You're based in Escondido, but your roots are in LA. Like what brought you and the studio to San Diego area?
Well, my husband, his family is here, and we met in LA in interior design school, actually. So we both studied the same thing, and we were just in LA for a very long time, 10 years or so. And so we've been wanting to move down here for the longest time, but we never had the right time until COVID happened and things, kind of slowed down in the beginning. So we moved right in that sort of time period. And then things started booming like ridiculously in our industry. So it was a good transition for me because, as you know, if you're moving to a different location entirely, you have to find all of your trades and vendors again. So that was a little bit of a transition for me, but it worked out.
Mm. You've said your passion for design started young. What were the early signs that this was going to be your path?
Well, I knew since I was a sixth grader. I was always kind of just telling my parents, oh, this should go there, that should go here. But unfortunately, I have a little bit of a sad story to go along with that. My mom, she had a gambling problem. And so we had to move from our home to a 1-bedroom for a period of time. And so even with that transition, I was telling my parents like where to put what because space was so limited. And so that's when I really doubled down on my passion and was like, your environment really affects your well-being and your mental health and just like your ability to grow as a person. As a teenager in high school, you can imagine that wasn't the most ideal, scenario for me. So I think that's really what solidified my passion and my decision to pursue it.
Mm. Before design, you spent time in a few different worlds. Like, how did you eventually decide to actually commit? Was that like on the back of your head, or was that something even that actually made you feel like, hey, I'm gonna commit to this full time?
Um, well, first it started with the commitment, right? But then I was obviously still very green and very young and still trying to find my way. So naturally, any job that came my way that was in the industry, I took. I guess it started with my mentor, Richard Herb. He was an instructor at the school I went to, FITM, and he kind of took me under his wings and he was like, you know what, if you ever have a client project and you're not feeling confident enough to handle it yourself, he was willing to partner up with me as well in that scenario. So that was a huge confidence booster, because again, I didn't have those resources, custom furniture makers and whatnot, and I still had a lot to learn. So I got my start with that. And I also worked at a staging company where it was a small business. So I got to sort of juggle a lot of different things, wear a lot of different hats. I kind of love any startups because I get to play such a big impact and a big role, almost like, hey, I wasn't hired for this job description, but because I'm so interested in all aspects of everything, I kind of was able to thrive and expand from there. So lots of different jobs, staging. I worked part-time for another designer, and then I ended up working at a construction company as their in-house designer. And then I just slowly moved up until I ended up working at a one-stop shop. I want to say it was a design and build firm. So that was where I really just kind of got to design new builds from ground up. And I learned the most there, I would say. And so after that job, I was very confident in sort of going off on myself, having part-time, or I would say side gigs at the time, right? Because I still needed to make some money to pay the bills. So I did have my own clients on the side while I was working for Hillstone Restaurant Group. And they're a very well-known, reputable restaurant group nationwide. So that was really fun to get to dabble in commercial and back of house, as well as being able to remodel like a restaurant in the front of house, just to create that ambiance for people to experience.
Mhm. What does the name designer space mean to you? Like, and how did you land on it back in 2015?
Oh gosh. Well, I can tell you this much. It took a very long time to come up with the name. Um, I have a very long last name as a Thai person. So I always knew that I wasn't going to have my firm based on my name like everyone else. So that was an easy decision. But as far as the designer space, I just went through so many iterations for like, I want to say 6 months. And just landed on that. I felt that it was um, neutral enough, but also if I wanted to build a team or like an online platform that it didn't revolve all around me and my face, and I'd be able to hire, which is the future plans anyway, is to be able to hire junior designers under me so that I would still be involved and supervising all of our projects and design, but I'll have so essentially a studio concept, more or less.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You spoke openly about losing the home earlier. How does that experience shape the way you think about a home actually provides someone beyond just looking good?
I think that's going to go back again to function. Like we had a kitchen setup that was literally all in a hutch. So it definitely wasn't pretty, but it was very functional and it got us through as a kid. We had a bunk bed, but it wasn't a regular twin over twin. It was I believe it was a twin over full size. So it's just I think when you're in that type of situation, again, feeling and function is the most important thing because you can achieve that with any budget. You know what I'm saying? And still make it beautiful. Like, even if it wasn't all cohesive, but everything had a place to live, right? And you lit a candle, let's say, like you can still feel very zen, like you have your own sacred space, and it never has to be this extravagant thing, right? Like what's being popular right now is that people are more so asking for a casual lived in feel for the design style, and I think a lot of like our modern lives are moving towards that, not living in this magazine perfect room, but being able to see and tell that there's a lot of life that goes on in here and things aren't going to be perfect, and that's okay. So I think I hope I answered your question. I think that's the most important thing.
Like, was there a specific moment, like when you realized your own story could become the foundation of the work rather than something trying to separate from it?
No, no, not. I mean, like, I think that was maybe a recent thing that I've come to realize that was a pivoting point in my life because I'm sure you know as well, like, as coming from an Asian background and culture, interior design was not one of the things that my parents wanted me to get into. They, were scared that I would be a starving artist, which, I completely understand. So I think that might have maybe altered my decision, at some point in my life. But because I had the situation I grew up in, it really you wouldn't be able to change my mind at that point, I guess.
Got your work really kind of like very broad areas coming from homeowners, developers, investors, and on and on. Like, how does designing for investor different from designing someone who's actually going to be limiting the space?
Yeah, no, 100%. So, designing for an investor or like a home developer is definitely much more, it's a little bit easier, I will say, because there's not a lot of emotions attached to it. Whereas you're designing someone's forever home, there's a lot of big decisions that need to be made that needs to also work for the person living in there. Whereas designing for an investor, we're trying to appeal to the mass so that we could sell the home. And so with that, I feel like I have a much more room for creativity in wanting to bring in or what is it? Create something that is both beautiful and in timeless and just like in demand, I want to say. So, um, yeah, I mean, I feel like that in that scenario, not only is the investor a client, but I am also kind of a client because I want to showcase my work since I don't have to adhere to X, Y, and Z from a homeowner, which is just it's fine too and lovely. It's just a very different approach for both types of projects.
Gotcha. Um, you've worked on multifamilies and low income housing projects as well. What's kind of the design challenge that's unique to those ones? And what gets overlooked in that category?
Um, the design challenges, I would say, would is just to stick within a budget, but it's also nice because when you're working on a project of that size, you actually have a number like given to you, so you can work within it and achieve it. Whereas again, a lot of times, if you're working with a homeowner, they might not know what their budget is, and it's kind of a little bit blurry. It could go a little up or down. But, in the beginning, no matter what, I still try to align myself with their budget as much as possible. But all that to say, even with a budget in mind, I don't feel like it's too much of a challenge on picking out the material to fit that because I I've been doing this for so long, so I know all my resources. What are the sources I should go directly to if I'm going to be in this price point? Now, that was, a few years ago. I do want to say, fast forward to 2026, I am feeling like there is a bigger or seeing a bigger gap between the low end and the high end projects. It's almost like the middle ground or the mid end product prices are sort of disappearing.
What do you
Unfortunately,
mean
it's
by
like
that? Like, give us an example of, let's say, a kitchen. Like, what do you mean by that?
Um, well, okay, so like a sink faucet.
Hmm.
I used to be able to find one that's a reliable brand
Hmm.
and maybe around 300 to 400 bucks, right? Now the same product that I would have picked for a mid-end project is now like more like 600. So things are going up. Like for me, I would categorize that as like a mid-high end price for just a sink faucet, it is getting a little harder to cater to the mid ground, unless the clients have a little bit more wiggle room in their price points to get something a little bit better, But there's always creative ways to make things work. Like I always say, hey, you know what? This is going to get a lot of heavy use. Let's invest in it and then we can save somewhere else, but you won't really be able to tell that you saved or got a good deal on that product. Like, for example, if there's a handmade mosaic tile that you absolutely love, and we're doing a bathroom remodel, I have no problems doing that in a niche because that might be, bare like 3 square feet or something like that you have to buy. And then we can find other tiles, the field tile around that to complement the niche. So there's always a way.
Walk us through your realtor partnerships. Like, what does a designer bring to a listing that agents can do alone?
Sure. So like mainly I would say when an agent is trying to sell a fixer upper. I just recently connected with an agent in La Jolla, and so she's trying to sell a I want to say 2.3 mil home. It's gorgeous. It's got really good bones. However, the kitchen is like not workable at all. So anybody who cooks heavily, entertains heavily, will have an issue with this house. And so in that scenario, she had asked me, can you do a proposed floor plan to show what the house could look like once this buyer buys it and then renovates it, so that way it's not like a question and they have to figure it out because there's a lot of, it's very stressful already to move from another place to a new home and to have to tackle remodeling and picking out all the design and finishes is just overwhelming. You know what I'm saying? So when an agent can say, hey, we have a designer lined up for you. We already reconfigured the floor plan to what you like. We can still make tweaks. And she has a resource of contractors that she can bring to the table as well. I think that makes the experience for them and the transition that they're going through right now a lot more easier and seamless. So that's what I can bring to the table, just helping the buyers or sellers kind of see the vision of a potential what the home can look like, its fullest potential. And then, of course, there's walkthroughs. So if they would like me to be present with the buyer and just walk through the house, I can do that. There has also been scenarios where people are moving from out of state. So obviously they need someone to be on the ground to get things ready for them, move-in ready. So things that are kind of miscellaneous but simple enough, like paint, new flooring throughout. Those are the two biggest things. If they don't want to redo the kitchen, but it's kind of outdated, they'll just paint the cabinets. So that kind of stuff is very helpful because then I can come in or the agent can at least refer me to help manage all of that. So I schedule the trades, I pick out the paint colors, I get it approved by the client. So it's just, again, another seamless transition.
Mm. When you're staging projects like that, or let's say prepping a home for the market, what is the highest ROI move that most sellers can skip?
Well, I will say I haven't staged for a very long time now. I don't do staging in my own company, but ask me your question again. The highest ROI, as in like what can somebody do to within staging, right? To
Or
make a
like
whole.
even just prepping a home, like you said, your proposed layout plans for a potential renovation, things like that. Like going through that process, what would you say in a designer's perspective? What can the sellers do or don't do that could be the highest ROI for them?
Well, so there's that, right? And then there's also I always think a fresh coat of paint is just it just makes the house feel so new, you know? And so if that's the one thing that they can invest in, then, I'd say go for it because other than that, really, if they have pretty good furniture and they're able to organize and clean up and curate it in a way, and again, that's something I can help with as well if they want me to. Then we can showcase the house. But a fresh coat of paint is always good.
Gotcha. You also did hospitality as well, like you mentioned before. What did
hmm
designing restaurants teach you that you still use in the homes today?
What in the restaurants? There's two very different settings, I want to say, but and maybe this is not completely answering your question, but a new skill that I did pick up while I was there because they had also like three in-house architects. So I was able to kind of work alongside them and I learned how to draw section cuts and millwork details. So it because most of the time we're doing custom booths and custom designs and whatnot. So I had to learn how to draw those details up so that we can hand it to the project manager and they can execute the way we want it. Another thing that was really nice is that they're always willing to make a full mock-up of, let's say, the bar top edge. You get a little 24-inch tabletop and you kind of like look at the different finishes and selections, like how should we design the wood planks, even something like that. So I got to work in much more detail than I normally would on a residential project. So now I can bring that sort of new skill that I picked up, and I can help my mill workers as well on the residential homes because I will say mill workers do like to be told like what to do exactly. Like this radius curve, I want it to be 3/8 of an inch because I studied it for 15 minutes. Like, you know what I'm saying? So um, yeah, I think that helped a little bit.
Gotcha. Uh, your mantra, it's soulful design, inspiring transformation. Like, what does the soulful design looks like in practice versus a space that's just well decorated?
Yeah. So I would say a soulful design incorporates a lot of your like treasures that you've collected throughout your life. Because I mean, I can't tell you how many times a new project, a new client, that they will say, "Oh, yeah, I don't have any art. Like, can you pick something?" They're all in boxes, and I just don't know if it's going to be usable or go with the new design. And I'm like, let me see it. Let me see it first, and then I'll tell you, And I had a project, I kid you not, I went through all of the art, and it was like by, well-known artists that they love, And so I was like, we can definitely use this. This is like good stuff. And the reason why, they felt that way is because they've known their art for so long, it's no longer new or special to them, right? It's like boxed up away. So they just thought that it wouldn't work. But they trust me when I say yes, 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 no type of thing. Like, this is what we're going to use. I don't want to use that. But we can, what we do with those art pieces is then we reframe it and we really bring the art pieces back to life. And now when clients walk through their home, they're reminded of, oh my gosh, I remember when I used to live in Alaska, so like tchotchkes and things from childhood, I love to incorporate those because I think you can tell, as a guest walking through anyone's home, whether this was picked out and means nothing, has no history behind it, but it's pretty and it all goes, probably was picked by a designer, you know? But yeah, so that's what I feel a soulful home really entails. So I will always kind of fight the client a little bit and drag it out of them. Like, give me something, sometimes when I am going through the house because I have to document measurements and things like that, I have to peek into like cabinets and I'm like, what is all this? How come you didn't tell me about this? I would love to use this, so things like that. And then inspiring transformation. I think we touched on it a little bit, is just that we as human beings are always evolving and growing as a person, right? So your house sort of needs to like grow with you, or at least create a space that will like not be a friction to what you want to bring more into your life, but more so creating that space opening so that you can bring more of what you want. So like, just a simple example, if I wanted to start painting more, I would probably set up a corner with an easel and all of that so that when I'm done for that session, I don't have to put everything back, because the next time I want to paint, I have to overcome that obstacle of setting everything up again. Whereas if I just had a designated corner there that lives like that all the time, it's going to help me achieve my goal of picking up this new habit of becoming a painter much more easily. So I think that part of my tagline is where that came from.
Mm. You've worked on or you work on like flat design fee, giving clients a per
Mhm.
room finishing estimated up front. Like, why did you choose that model over the other common ones like percentage or straight up hourly or retainers?
Yeah. So I will say yes, most designers do charge hourly and then they will give a range of hours. Now, the reason why I don't like doing that is from past experience, I've run into clients who are like, "Oh, but like I really want to know what it's going to cost me at the end of the day." Like, and I'm sure this is common too, whereas like the designer quotes a range of hours, but then goes over it, as the maybe the scope of work expands and it kind of just snowballs. So I don't want to ever make my client feel like that, like, oh my gosh, every hour is being billed, like I can't talk to her. I have to make this super fast, 5 minutes, like I don't know, it's just the feedback I was getting was just all leading up to that. So once I had enough projects like history to kind of pull data from, I was then able to make my fees a flat design fee. And so I switched over to this model. Now, every project and every person, every contractor is different. So, it's very hard to estimate how many hours it's going to be in the project management and execution phase. And so that's why I'm sort of having to put that hourly at the end to still just cover for all of our time. Now, let's say if it is a contractor that I've worked with multiple projects, right? Now I know exactly what to expect from a project. In that scenario, I may be able to do more so of a retainer, a monthly retainer instead of hourly. And so, every project is different. I'm not going to say like, I'm never going to only charge hourly. If it's a very small project, we probably would have to just say, okay, let's buy a 5 hour, package first and then see where it leads to there. So everyone is different. And I think all designers pivot and they don't have just one sort of pricing structure. They have multiple to be able to bid out the different unique projects.
Mm. Also, designer for a day. It's a very unusual offering. Like, who's this service really for, and what kind of make you create that?
Yeah, so to be quite honest, I created that. It sounded odd to me too until until I read more into it because a colleague designer of mine, she recommended it to me because I was like, we're slowing down a little bit. Like, are you, And she said, yes, she's slow too, but designer for a day has really been keeping the momentum going. And I was like, oh, okay. And if I'm being really honest, I was against designer for a day for quite a while because I was like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to get a client from A to Z within a day. As you know, like, well, I always say all good things take time. So it's kind of impossible to, try to pick everything out. But if it's something where the client just needs like some guidance, like they know that they're not going to get every single thing they need picked out, but they just want hand holding or they want to go shopping with you. And again, just like getting the ball rolling. Yeah. Feeling a little bit more confident, having somebody to bounce the idea off of is sometimes very helpful, like to us who are in the industry, like we're like, oh, that's not helpful at all. But to somebody else, it could mean the world to them, right? So I'm actually more and more open to this, okay, I can help people as well, just maybe not to work to the very end, if they are DIYers or they just need to, be very mindful on their budget. There has to be other ways where designers can work with folks who don't have as much to spend to their project as well. So that's sort of how that came about was, hey, if this is all you are looking for, let's do it. Let's have a fun day together.
You emphasize that you don't impose your style multiple times here. Clients echo that in their reviews. How do you balance really from like a expert opinion perspective with letting the client lead?
So I don't think it's like me balancing my expert opinion, to them. It's more so that so even though I'm still going to give them the style that they want, right? I don't like to regurgitate. Like I don't want to then present to the client exactly what they asked me for. I throw a spin on it. And most of the time, like 9 out of 10 times, my design presentation always goes something along like, oh my gosh, I never thought about, like, I would have never thought of that. Like, I would never have like envisioned it that way, but I love it, And so I think that naturally positions me to be an expert without having to any persuasion at all. It's just shown in the results and the options that I present to them because not only does the design speak for itself and shows that I have listened, that I have like documented all the things that you have, sort of told me that you wanted. And then like add on to what they've told me. Sometimes clients don't know what they want too. So I have to fill in the gaps that way. And, I'll look around to see like what is the current state of the space and kind of like pick little hints here and there. Like, I had a furniture project in Valley Center and they had two living rooms right next to each other and it's open concept. So there was no divider. So one was the casual living, one was the formal living. And she had said, that, oh, we don't really sit in the formal living. Our cats use it more than we do. We don't entertain, so we don't host, and people just don't sit in there. And to me, that didn't sit right with me, to have to design a whole room where nobody was going to be using it. So I asked, okay, what are your hobbies? Like, do you want this to be a like recreation space? What, just trying to, again, drag something out of them, right? That they haven't really quite figured out yet. And I actually got nothing for the first, like nothing out of them. And so I went back home, and I was working, doing the layout, and all of a sudden I remember seeing a laptop sitting on the breakfast table. And that gave me the idea to, let's turn this formal living room, instead of having like a coffee table and sofa or something like that, let's do a bistro table that is like dining table height, and then do a curved sofa around that. So now my clients can have two different places to sit at when they're working on their laptop. And then come to find, on the reveal day, when I was like going through all the new spaces with them, her husband was like, oh, I can do my puzzles here now. And I'm like, I wish they would have told me that when I asked, but okay, I'm glad that we can do much more in here. But so there was that. And then I added like a little chase lounge, so that, again, hey, I know you're not using this space, but if you're reading, here's a really comfortable spot to read. So it was really kind of figuring out how we can reuse and repurpose that space. And again, I think, oh gosh, am I answering your question? Okay. Yeah. So I think, again, that the design and the thoughtfulness speaks for itself when it becomes realized, or when during our presentation, or when it excites the client because it was an idea that they never thought of before. And so that's how I established my expertise.
What do you see the most common mistakes from homeowners that they would do before they even call a designer?
I think it's starting construction with no plan. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many out there that they just start construction and they haven't even picked out the tiles yet, and the contractors like having to delay the project or stop work on the project because such and such hasn't been picked out yet. And so there's that. And I just think that people don't really know what to expect when they're working with a designer. So I think there's a little bit of intimidation with that as well. And so for me, at least for my Instagram platform, I try very hard to show that I am a down to earth person, and just talk to me. You don't have to be afraid, and you can ask questions, whatever. I'm open to it. And just, it's a more casual feel on that platform versus something like on my website if you're looking through my portfolio. So yeah, I think that's the number one mistake is paying so much money to invest in your property, but then at the end of the day, if there was maybe no designer on the project, it might not look as good as it could. They could have spent the exact same money, but the results could have been 10 times better. And a lot of people don't think about how, yes, hiring a designer costs money, but what is that? How does that benefit you? Right? You're saving money and time because you're not running into surprise issues and mistakes along the way. Because before I order everything, I am checking the specs. I am making sure it's all compatible. I am checking when the items are delivered, just to make sure that we can stay within that return period. Because again, a lot of people, they buy everything and then they don't open it and it's just stored in the garage. You don't really find out until when you need it that something is damaged. But what happens if that something took 6 weeks to get here? We want to be able to figure that out prior. And as designers, we have these relationships with our vendors. So they're very much more willing and open to help us with any issues and returns and exchanges and, whatnot. Whereas if you're a homeowner, they don't really, unfortunately, treat you the same way at like bend over backwards to help you. Sometimes you have to pay it all over again. So, just things like that. Being able to speak to the trades in a technical term as well, like how you really wanted the tile layout when it could have been done a certain way. And again, the results are compromised again. So yeah, there's that.
Budget is where a lot of design relationships got very tense. How do you handle that money conversation so it doesn't derail the project?
Right in the beginning, a furniture design project, I'm just going to use that as an example. If you want me to design the bedroom and the living room, my contract, like delivered to you, will have on the last page addendum 1. And so this section will price out the room, like total of how much I think your furniture investment will be. And then it breaks down all the different furniture pieces, because if you just give them the one lump sum, they are like kind of sticker shock, which I get it, right? Like it could be, it all adds up. So that's why I have to break it down by furniture piece and like actually give the number for each item, because then it starts to make sense to them. They're like, oh, that's why it costs this much. Yeah, she's right. That does kind of cost around that much. But the goal of this is to establish a target budget from the get-go, so that when I do get into the design and selecting things, I'm not picking out a $10,000 sofa when we had agreed on a $5,000 sofa in the beginning, right? Or at least I'm not shocking them, because what happens if I show them this beautiful sofa and they fall in love with it and they say, yes, that. And then I come back with the bill afterwards and say, it's 15K, So it's very important that we establish that budget per furniture item as well, so that we can stay aligned and it doesn't become an issue later.
Gotcha. When you're looking at the budget of something, are you more um, looking at talking to the client and you have a client come up with that number, or do you have a kind of idea of, hey, if you have X budget, that'll be something like this, or Y budget, that'll be something like this, to the client when you have that conversation? Or it just more like, hey, Mr. Mrs. Client, what's your budget? And they're like, tell you a number. Do you really go through that number with them?
I will say again, most of the time, clients have no idea what the budget should be, because they're not in this industry, right? And so when they answer me that, I will say, okay, well, again, just going back to the furniture budgets, a bedroom usually starts at 35K and up, but it's not just the furniture, it's the window treatments, it's the accessories and all the art pieces too, right? And then a living room design starts at 40K and up. So I'll give them that sort of frame of reference, but then I will also say, okay, well, that's okay that if you don't know what your budget is, because I'm going to create it for you. Just tell me, what level quality of furniture would you like me to source for you? Is it mid? Is it mid high? Is it high? And that's all I need to know. Then I'll go back and then I'll put it all together based on what I know, how much things are going to cost based on the level, the quality, or the level of the furniture pieces.
Hmm. On that, I know you have a project that you wanted to share with us today. Why don't you give us the background of kind of what happened, like who is that person or family, and kind of what happened there, and then by all means share that project with us.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we should do the a kitchen project. Would that be okay with
Yeah.
you? Okay. So this kitchen project of mine, this one is in Carlsbad, and so I met with the client. He had such a like dark dungeon kitchen, and it was like retro. It was all the walls were red and laminated. It was designed before, but it definitely needed a new facelift. And so for him, because it was so narrow and like dark, we decided to increase the height of the ceiling. That's like one of the tricks we can make a room feel bigger, if we have the space up for it. And so this project was interesting because most of the time the clients find me and I deal with them directly. But this project came about a little bit differently. The contractor came to me with this project, and so essentially my client was the contractor, and then so I was billing through them, and then they would bill to the client on my behalf. But because the client had a relationship established with the contractor already, it was like, hey, let's raise the ceiling up by 12 inches and that's it, and they had sort of like finishes kind of pre-figured out. Like he wanted epoxy flooring in the kitchen to look like marble. So I've never done that before, but in my eyes, and I think with a lot of other designers, I think they can relate to this. I was just like, oh no, that's not cool. Like that's not the look. Like if you want marble, we can get you marble, but let's not do that to the floor, So again, it was just weird, like coming into this project kind of like midway in the beginning sort of thing where things have already like they've already conversated on what the design's kind of going to look like. And so I came in and I was like, okay, yeah, you want to raise the roof or the ceiling by 12 inches. Guess what I did? I looked up the house address and I did Google satellite to look at the roof line. And then I go, it looks like this is a vaulted ceiling, like the roof line. I could see the pitch. And so I had come up, like after going through the presentation and everything, I had come up with, hey, contractor, client, let's explore raising it even higher. And so at the very end, he did end up going for that. So that was really cool, just again, not being able to be part of the conversation in the initial beginning, but I slowly gained trust from the client. Again, it's a very intimate thing that we're working together. I'm kind of like his advocate as well, on things. And so after he decided to raise the ceiling completely up to the vaulted ceiling, again, he had worked with the contractor on the positioning of these solar tubes. Remember, it's dark. So we only have one source of light coming from one window. And so the solar tubes made sense. But the layout that he came up with, I was like, I'm not really feeling it, And so the client had like texted me this and asked me for my opinion. So then I kind of changed it up. And I think the contractor was like, oh, but I already talked to my installer and it seems like this is like the distance that we should do it. I'm like, yeah, but still, this is still the distance that, we're still within the specs here. And so slowly the project just kind of transformed into like better and better. I feel like my client kind of started to understand the real difference between working with the contractor versus working with the designer and asking for both of our opinions because both of our opinions are very different sometimes. But not to say that the contractor wasn't willing to do all of this. He was like, oh, well, we won't know until we open up the ceiling and, do a little bit more exploration. So that's why we couldn't make that decision until we really got into it. So anyway, without further ado, I can kind of pull up the drawings. All right, so here is the sort of narrow, elongated kitchen layout. Here is the one source of light I was talking about. Luckily, this is a big bay of windows, so that's great. And so we really kind of stuck to this elongated floor plan. Initially, the design or the existing kitchen, the island went all the way up to the wall here. So it really didn't promote a good flow. This client actually had people or would hire catering to cook in his kitchen as well. So if there's like multiple people doing other stuff and prep work, he opening up this area here really kind of gives you flow and functionality there. And then as you can see, this is the only reason why I included a snapshot of the roof lines there so that I can show the contractor like, hey, look, I think it's feasible. It's probably going to work. You know, here's the roof line. So we did that. So here's the long island in the middle. You enter from the dining room through these double doors here. And so the way I came out with this layout was I wanted the range wall to be the feature when you first walk in and see like the backdrop, right? Because now I have changed from having the marble on the floor to the wall and just covering that entire background there. So that's the idea there. And then I added 2 sconces on each side of the range. I always say lighting is like the jewelry of the home. So wherever I can put it, but it's also functional as well, just to be able to give him some more light there. So we have that there. And then over here on the left side, we have a double oven. And then if you walk over to the right side here, we have the fridge and a beverage hutch where he can kind of keep all of his coffee maker and appliances hidden. So those 2 are next to each other, but it's like easy to grab the milk and whatnot for your coffee. You don't have to walk anywhere else. And then we have, of course, the sink at the window. So that's the floor plan. And so once we understand the floor plan, then we can move on to creating elevations for our clients, right? Because they need to sort of finalize that first before we can draw the elevations up to really show him what it's going to look like. So zoom in here. This is what I was talking about. Here are the 2 sconces on the range wall. This sort of diagonal hatch is where all the marble was going. And then we also added in this walnut ledge with brass railing for spices and just like extra accessories and things. This client had a lot of storage needs, so that's why we also incorporated 2 big hutches on either side. And then here's the double oven. Over here, we did a walnut wood slatted covering on over the wall here. And then we just, instead of doing that on the door here as well, we just went with a flat slab walnut just to, again, blend it all in. But for me, I love turning like kitchens or bathrooms and making it feel cozy and homier, you know, by adding things like rugs or a picture light for an art piece right here. So again, this very cozy and creative element to that. And then let's see, on the other side of the wall, we continued the slats throughout. And I can show you a picture of this later on too, but we have it throughout. We even incorporated LED light above here to kind of showcase the millwork. And then, of course, a full pantry set here. And then another sort of mirroring art piece on this side. He was really big on getting commission artwork done. So I knew that he would get some pretty good pieces there. And then for the island, we ended up going with a very thick wood top, again, out of walnut. I decided to make a waterfall on this one side because on this side here, because we had plans to do this wall full of antique mirror. So it's going to create a reflection, and I wanted to see the reflection of that beautiful wood right there as well. And then once you move away from the elevations, here's also the lighting plan. You'll see that I added in this chandelier here off to the side so that it's not like competing with the backdrop here, but still functional for the island itself. Okay, and as you can see here, the solar tubes weren't added yet because this was sort of later on. It was like an idea that the client had. And so it was just through text that we were figuring out the position on that. And then here's a quick mock-up of the design here. So here's the chandelier off to the side. Here's the big, beautiful Calicotta marble. Although it's not real marble because that's porous. So we ended up doing porcelain slabs that were book match. And, they're a lot thinner too, and they're a lot more durable for, a place where it can get pretty messy. We also added this pot filler over the range, which is very efficient. And so what you're seeing here is the final selections that were approved by the clients. Usually on the first round, I believe for this project, I showed him 2 different styles for the plumbing fixtures and at least 3 different sconces to go over here. So I always give my clients options on certain things, and then we reduce it and finalize the documentation by removing those other ones out and just keeping the only ones here. That way the contractor like yourself can use this as a visual representation as well. And then here, the client decided to save on not having to do a custom hood, so like having to build something, frame something up. And so I was able to find this really cool black chimney hood that just came like this, ready-made, purchasable. So we were really happy about that. And then the client really wanted a commercial fridge, so we went with Gen Air, and this one happened to have a black interior as well. So that worked out. So I think the appliances, really do play a part in the design as well. Like if you look at this cooktop, it's got these sort of vintage old world charm knobs on them, which we really love. So you can see that for this project, we really sort of found a balance between sleek and modern, but then having these sort of soulful elements, you could say. So that's that. And again, every client's different too. Like some people want to pick out their own appliances because they're kind of techie and they just want to, read the specs in a little bit more, which is totally fine by me. And so the appliance is something that we'll always just kind of talk about to see who will pick that out. Okay. And then here we went pretty minimal, I would say, for this project because he was doing a bunch of other stuff around the house too. And so we went pretty minimal on the kitchen organizers. And so what I like to do is present my clients the visuals of this and label them. And then that way I can label them on my drawings as well. So again, when I leave them these printouts, they can really start to envision how they're going to use the space and like how the space is going to function for them. And then these are just some miscellaneous items. So yeah, that kind of wraps up that project in Carlsbad that we just did. Did you have any questions while I was running through them? Sorry, forgot to.
It's amazing. Only other thing is, do you have pictures of after all everything's finished up?
I have a video. I actually emailed the client this morning to set a date to get professional photography done. So this is a fresh project that we wrapped up, but I do have a video. One second. Just a quick short video. I took it myself and edited myself. I'm by no means a pro, so.
No, I love that. It was something where you take the render and you actually put it into reality. That's what I was curious to see.
Yes. I know it's quite unbelievable sometimes to go from paper to reality.
Gotcha. And you said you have another one possibly to share with us as well?
Oh, let's see which one. I'll share. Let's start with the video first this time. And so, since we did a since we did a kitchen example, we can go through a bathroom one. All right.
Whoa, I have to ask, did you piece all the floor tiles together yourself?
I did. This is why I decided to show this one because that was a fun one. It was very, creative. And did you see the? Wait, first of all, not only did I lay out the flooring because the blues, they weren't solid color. They were like a blend. So I was like, oh, we really need to get this right. And I couldn't, when I went on site to go do that, I couldn't see the different blues because of all the drywall dust. So I had to clean it first, grab a sponge, wet it all. And so once I did that, then I could lay it out. But the most impressive thing about these tiles was that our tile guy actually changed the grout color midway to match the white tile color. And I was just like mind blown a little bit, So now I use like pictures of that. So going forward, if I wanted to do something similar, I can kind of study how he decided which grout line to make what color. But that was the first time for me as well going through that. Luckily, we had someone pretty skillful on our project. But the walls too. So if you notice, the walls had sort of a glossy accent, kind of randomly placed. And so with that, my tile guy actually hand drew like grids of all those tiles and gave them to me a physical copy so that I can go and shade in each tile where I wanted the gloss pieces to be. And so he just followed that. It was a lot of fun. I did a few different iterations, but I don't think you would think that like, an interior designer would be doing that for a client, but we really, really get into the nitty-gritty of things and making those type of decisions.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Any other stories on that particular project?
Well, I do have a video of the primary bathroom as well. And that one actually has a story. I was kind of narrating it. But basically it shows that not only was I able to give my clients what they really wanted, but I also saved them some money. Like turned an impossible situation where the tile was discontinued into an optimal situation for us where now we got it for cheaper. The manufacturer made an exception for us to make us the last batch. So I will pull that up for you. Have you ever been told something you're completely obsessed with has been discontinued? Not this time. This green tile was supposedly impossible to get when our rep told us the bad news, right when we were just about ready to place the order. After 2 weeks of waiting to see if they would make an exception for us, I went straight to the source. Not only did the manufacturer agree to a special batch, but we also got it for half the price. That's right, from $10 to $5 a square foot. There's nothing out there quite like it, and believe me, we've looked. Sometimes you've just got to make your own miracles happen. Oh, and by the way, this post was totally not meant to show you how designer can help you save money on your project and still get you your dream design. Nope, not at all.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah. We all love a good happy ending story because as you know, construction, a lot of bad stuff could come up. So
That's amazing. On that, was there like while we going through those two projects and kind of a lot of things um, I wanted to go through. But the first one is like out of the client's perspective, um, what do you think a client's journey is going from, hey, I wanted to do a kitchen, for example, to the whole finishing? And what would you do to take them to be like, maybe you just got a call saying, hey, Tara, I have a kitchen. I want it to be renovated. Going from that point to all the way to the finishing project. What's your thought process and framework that you think a lot of clients or homeowners that don't really understand it or don't really know in terms of that whole entire process?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think if we're talking about a kitchen design, the main concern I think for everyone are the cabinetry because that's the highest costs you're going to be spending on materials, right? And so I think if we're able to tackle that conversation again in the beginning, where it's like, do you want RTA cabinets or do you want semi custom or full on custom? I think I can sort of figure out based on their style and what they want on like if their budget is feasible or not. And if I can't figure it out because again, I'm not a cabinet maker, I will maybe reach out to my cabinet vendor and see, hey, what is the ballpark you think for this kind of style and finish is going to be. So that can kind of help the client feel a little bit better too. But it's just hard to like nail it down until you sort of draw up the layout. You know what I mean? And so, it depends too if the client wants it to be paint finish or stain grade. Stain grade is obviously going to be more expensive. And again, that's where the creativity comes. It's like if your budget is not going to be able to have that, why don't we just do the island in wood finish and then we'll paint everything else around it. Maybe we go with a quartz material countertop instead of a real natural stone to help save on costs a little bit, that sort of thing. So I think from the very beginning, you have to have a connection with the client. You have to at least vibe with them. And so, like, even if I have my own resources of contractors that I am bringing onto the project, let's say they want 2 or 3 bids in comparison. And even if I do know these people, I can't make that decision for you. You have to actually meet and feel the vibe of which contractor you like, not just their pricing, but also get to know them because again, we're working on such an intimate space for them and this relationship is going to go on for a while. You have to be able to work together and like each other, right? And just like the way we work. And so I think number one is getting the budget sort of talked about and ballpark aligned, then establishing that trust between you and the client. And then once I get into it, showing the design that kind of just gets them excited. Like now they go from, I don't know where I'm at, what I'm doing, to hiring the right people to like, oh my gosh, it's working. And now I'm excited because I can finally visualize it. Like before this, up to this point, I couldn't visualize it at all. And I don't want people to think that you can only hire a designer if you're going to have her work on the full entire project from A to Z to completion. There has been times where a client will approach me, let's say it's a husband or a bachelor, and he's not really like interested in the design aspect, but he is so technical. Like he just wants to know the layout of the cabinets. Sometimes I would just bid a project for here are the drawings and it includes one revision in the flat fee. So you don't have to worry about it. But again, that gives them that capability to visualize what it's going to look like. Like right now, some people don't care right now what color and such. I would say that leans a little bit harder for the women who care about all of that parts and pieces too. So, we can tackle it again, however, whatever works for you, whatever you need. And then baby steps. If you only want to hire me first for the drawings, and then you're like, oh, she really knows what she's talking about. I really like her. I trust her. Let me hire you now to pick out some finishes. Maybe he has like, certain things that he already picked out, but he knows nothing about tile and countertop. Hire us for just those portions, and that's when the hourly framework pricing structure really works well for piecemealing things like that. So as you get into construction and, going through the chaos and seeing the in progress stuff, I think the client's experience there, at least how I like to manage it, is that me and the contractor will have a very good working relationship. Like, we see each other as partners. And so if anything comes up during construction, I would hope that the contractor would contact me first, and say, hey, look, here's the issue that we're running into. It's not going to work like this. Because what that allows is for me to take the time to come up with a good solution, or a couple different solutions, right? And then I'll take it to the client directly and propose them and explain to them the situation. So what does that do? I'm not coming to the client with a problem and no solution. I'm coming to the client once I have a solution. And, now we can really progress and talk about this. What that does for the contractor as well is that he doesn't have to be part of any of this discussion. I'm handling it for him so that I can get the answer he needs to continue and not further delay the project. So in a way, I look at myself as making the contractor's life a lot easier too. He should be focusing on his expertise and what he needs to do to complete this project with, quality finishes and, scheduling everyone to do the work. So that's how we work together. And like having that sort of system in place where I come to the client with solutions, again, I would hope makes the client experience a lot better, as instead of, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what to do now. How do I, I hate that. That's going to be ugly. It's going to be horrible, So, again, that's, again, hand holding, just being there to support, and, always thinking creatively and asking yourself what else is possible is sort of my model. And then, once we hit completion, I think the client's happy. They're excited to start, working and living in their space. And hopefully they know the process and they'll want to hire all of us again for their next endeavor, or their vacation home or their second home, whatever it is.
Where do you see designer space next, 5 to 10 years or 20 years?
I see, because I think about this a lot. I see myself having at least 3 junior designers under me so that we can take on more projects. So that's the dream.
That's amazing. Where can people find you?
They can find me at designer-space.com. Or my Instagram is on there as well. So those are the 2 places that you can look me up right now.
That's amazing. Let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.